I decided to wear grey today, and that seems quite fitting, don't you think? There's a lot going on at Manchester United, and if you are new to this channel, I am making a safer space for Man United fans online, alright? There's a lot of sensationalist headlines and people calling people names and doing all this toxic stuff. We're not going to do that, okay? We are just going to have as clean and as fair a discussion about what's going on at Man United as possible. And I sat down today thinking, how am I going to plan my video for Ruben Amorim and his last two games and, you know, where we are right now? And that's going to come out a bit later today. But we have to start with breaking news coming from Manchester United, which is that Dan Ashworth, our sporting director, the heralded messiah from Newcastle that we've stolen from the clutches of the Magpies, has left. They're calling it a mutual parting of ways. And can I just say, I've worked in recruitment a lot. You know, in my professional life, I've worked in recruitment for about 5 years, and it's never mutual. Do you know why? Because even a breakup, this is what it is. It's a breakup. It's never mutual because someone is making the final decision. Someone is calling the other person and saying, we need to have a chat, while the other person is not doing that. They might not be caught unawares by it. They might feel like it's coming and then say, yeah, you know what, fair enough. But someone's had to make that phone call, and it seems like Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS are the ones that have done it. But I thought it'd be good, as we have that breaking news, to kind of overlook or to take an overall assessment on where INEOS have been so far, what they've done so far, because it's been a very contrasting mix of good and bad, and I'm struggling now to decipher which is the better of the two and which one we're getting an overwhelming sense of. So I thought we'd go through everything and then you can make your decision in the comments. I really want you to get in the comments of this one. We're going to do the video, like I said, on Amorim. I want you to get in the comments there. But we're at 2,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And our next giveaway is coming at 2,500, which is exclusive to YouTube. So only subscribers on YouTube will be getting access to the giveaway, and it's a good one. I've already got it sorted out. So click that subscribe button if you want to join a bit more of a calmer, more relaxed community of Manchester United fans, where we stay away from the toxicity, like I said, and discuss the biggest club in the world in the best way possible. So let's just start with the beginning of the INEOS era. Like when they came in, I was really happy because I thought we're getting people who we can sort of relate to as a fan base, who seem to understand what the pressures are of being Manchester United owners. And, you know, the whole time that the Glazers were there, minus the period under Sir Alex Ferguson, we didn't have a footballing structure, so we were going to get that in. And straight off the bat, I just want to disregard some of the stuff I've been hearing about Sheikh Jassim from the time that he was linked with us and the time that even now, whenever there's a shred of something going wrong, people always want to jump on the Sheikh Jassim thing. Like, I'm sorry, every single picture I've seen of the guy looks like AI. We've only seen 3 since he's been born, right? And I can't get out of my head, and maybe I'm not too clued up on football finances to properly understand this, but if you've got the money to buy half of Manchester if you wanted to with the drop of a dime, then you could have gone to the Glazers' overall asking price, couldn't you, instead of having to work with them. So maybe you didn't want to overpay, maybe that, but if you had that money and you could clear the debt and Man United could become a force, then you'd make that money back, wouldn't you? Tenfold, probably. So, well, not tenfold, we're talking billions here, but you know what I mean. So I was always very skeptical of the Sheikh Jassim links, because if he was that serious, then he would be our owner now, because someone with that amount of, we've seen in the world how that works, with that amount of finances, you get what you want. And if you wanted Man United more enough, and if it was clear that that's what he was doing, then it would have happened by now. So I'm not sure about those links. I just want to get that out of the way. So looking at INEOS, I mean, they came in and they changed everything. They changed the entire backroom staff, and they came in with plans of stadium rejuvenation, of training ground facilities, which seem to be actually catching fire. Like they're going to be happening. So, well, whatever happens with the stadium, but the training plans, at least with a £50 million injection of cash into it, or something thereabout. These figures will always change because no one knows until we get the final receipt. But the fact that you're already committing funds to Manchester United makes me think, okay, you're doing way more than the Glazers have ever done, so fair enough. And then it was always about that one mantra that keeps on coming into people's heads, and that I keep thinking as well whenever the club aren't doing too well, but I always have something to fall back on, is that we're employing best-in-class people in key positions at Manchester United Football Club. So, a seat on the board for Jean-Claude Blanc, who was pivotal in brokering some of the bigger deals for PSG and Jordan and David Beckham. Omar Berrada as our chief executive, coming in from a really successful time at Manchester City, but clearly getting a promotion into this job. So you think, here's someone who has been around the city of Manchester long enough, who knows what success looks like, and is going to bring that from a CEO point of view. Christopher Vivell, who comes in as a technical director for a certain amount of time, has had his contract extended, which I think we need to come back to with his Ashworth thing, but he was really good when he was at some of the Red Bull projects and with Chelsea, and then we got him in. That was a bit of a coup at the time. Jason Wilcox, Southampton have been a perennial academy production line of bringing in really strong young players, and we kind of saw some influence from him by seeing some of the young players already brought into the club, like Chedo Obi-Martin, Sekou Kone, Samuel Assail. There were clearly James Overy. There were clearly some players that were brought in with an academic point of view, and it all kind of pointed to the angel at the top of the Christmas tree, which was Dan Ashworth. And I'm not going to lie, when he came in, I was buzzing, because not only was it a bit of a coup to take him from Newcastle, but we saw what he did at Brighton, and we've seen what he's been able to do so far with limited resources. So you think, okay, give him more, and then we're going to see what's going to happen. And frankly, the signings were good. In my opinion, we can all debate it till the cows come home, but let's go through each of them. I've gone through the academy prospects, which I think are brilliant, and I'm really happy that we brought a load of those in. But I'm looking at Manuel Ugarte, who we got for about 40 to 45 in the end. They wanted 60. We negotiated down. We had to wait a bit longer, fair enough. But that's a good signing, in my opinion. In a pivotal point of the pitch, a 24-year-old battling midfielder is exactly what we needed. So I'm happy with the Ugarte signing. The De Ligt signing as well, I think it was 40 million for him. Again, these figures will change. No one actually knows, okay, with these figures, because we don't know what's been paid out and when. It's all a bit of a... money in football is just odd. Like, you just don't know where things are going and when they're going to go to those places. But Matthijs de Ligt for around £40 million is solid as well. 24 years old. He's been at Bayern Munich, he's been at Juve, and he's been at Ajax. And people saying he failed at those clubs. Well, he won the league with each of them in his first season. Did he get displaced by Dyer at Bayern Munich? No, actually. He played 34 games for them in that season, with a lot of them with Dyer, and was only benched 4 times. So I think there was a lot of discourse around the De Ligt signing, which I disagreed with, and I made it quite public at the time, and I think he's a good signing. So whether he fits into that central centre-back role, or we have to find something else for him, but that is a good signing, because it's a big, imposing centre-back who wants to win above all else, and that's what I like. And Lenny Yoro, obviously, 60 million quid for him is an overspend by most people's books, but we're still Manchester United. We can pay that kind of fee, and he would have probably gone for half that to Real Madrid, because their bargaining position is a lot better than ours, I'll be honest. So we had to pay over the odds for him. Maybe not half, maybe 40 odd. He'd have gone to Real Madrid, but they would have waited until it was a free transfer like they did with Mbappe. We snipped in and got him. And he started off getting an injury against Arsenal, but when he came back against them, he looked good. Didn't have his best game against Forest, but none of them did. So he's a young 19-year-old centre-back who I can't wait to see him flourish at Man United, because that's the first young centre-back that I've been really encouraged by us having at the club for a very long time. And Joshua Zirkzee is probably the one that stands out, right? So that is a player who, the structure of the deal actually doesn't make it seem bad, but he hasn't kicked on. And the jury's out. He's young and he's still adapting, but the jury's out on him. So we're just going to have to wait and see what kind of comes of him. But the thing with Dan Ashworth is that those are the signings that he was clearly involved with, but we had to wait 9 months worth of gardening leave to bring him in. And we're getting 5 months out of him. I don't even think he's passed his probation. If this is what, I'm assuming he's got a 6-month probation in a role like that. So I don't think we've spent any more money beyond the £3 million compensation to Newcastle to bring him in. But it's annoying that we're having to have another setback. And Ruben Amorim himself is having to have another setback, because he would have been sold this dream of working with these best-in-class people and having this sort of structure in place. And I'm interested to see what INEOS do next in terms of replacing him. But before we get onto that, I just want to look at a couple of things that have come to light lately in the news that Ornstein broke for The Athletic and the New York Times, as well as some other publications who have kind of confirmed what he said. And it seems like the decision to keep Erik ten Hag was influenced by the sporting director, but has massively backfired. We all knew that. And I was of the opinion that at the time, to sack a manager after he's won the FA Cup is harsh. And given that he didn't have much time, any time, with any competent structure behind him, he deserved, in my opinion, you could call me wrong because hindsight is 2020, but at the time, I said, and I agree with it now, even though time has changed it, I still think it was the right thing to do at the time, because the way I think, right, if we moved into an alternate universe where we just made the decision quickly and then had a slow start, everyone would have just gone back and said, well, we should have kept Ten Hag because he won the FA Cup and he has another structure. So just because it didn't work out doesn't mean that at the time there wasn't reason behind the decision. So I thought, and I think INEOS thought at the time, that keeping Erik ten Hag was the devil, and it was giving, and it was giving a bit more consistency behind the scenes, and he would be able to at least benefit from what's coming in. That's what I think happened. But it's come out to light that Ashworth wasn't happy with the decision to sack him. Now, I liked Erik ten Hag and I wanted him to succeed more than most Man United fans, mainly, at least publicly, for sure. But their positions become untenable, and Erik ten Hag's position became untenable. And as a sporting director, if you're there pining for the guy to keep his job without seeing enough to keep him in his job, then that's going to raise questions to yourself. And then when it came to looking at new managers, apparently, I don't know enough about this, and I'm not going to add fuel to the fire. I'm just going to report what I've heard. And if this is true, then I'll give my opinion, because it's apparently clear that Dan Ashworth wanted an English manager, and apparently, again, we don't know, it's all speculation, that Gareth Southgate was the man that he wanted. If that is the case, then your hands are tied, because there's nothing that Gareth Southgate did, rather than bring some unity to England, that makes me think he was good enough for Manchester United. And I think Gareth himself has to accept that Manchester United is a whole different beast, and he was not going to be up for that. From what we've seen so far, he was not going to be up for that challenge. So if Dan Ashworth was a key component into getting talks going with Gareth Southgate to replace Erik ten Hag, then I can see why that would ruffle some feathers, and I can see why that's not a good look for Dan Ashworth. What else isn't a great look for Dan Ashworth is the fact that we took him from Newcastle and he's left 5 months into the job. He also left quite soon into things going wrong at Newcastle, because a lot of the deals that they've done with the PSR rules and everything have hampered them in the transfer window they've just had, and in the succeeding ones as well, which has made Eddie Howe look pretty bad. So I don't think he put up many trees at Newcastle. I think he did a great job at Brighton, but he's done a pretty nominal job at Manchester United, because he's now saying, like, a lot of the things coming out as well is that people who were making the decisions weren't the people who should have been. So he doesn't feel like he had all of the power and the influence that he should have done as sporting director. So if that's the case, how much influence did he have on the transfers? This is all conjecture, it's all speculation, but all of this is adding up to the fact that INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself has made a very swift decision to get rid of Dan Ashworth. And there's two ways you can look at that. One, is it a bit of a red flag that he's making that decision so soon without seeing it bear any fruit? That's one side. We will never know. We will never know about that. But the other side is he making swift decisions because Man United have rested on their laurels for so long that everyone is caught up and gone ahead of us now, that we aren't in a position to have passengers, and we actually have to have decision makers that are behind the vision. And with the vision that Berrada has said, that Vivell said, that Jean-Claude Blanc has said, or Ratcliffe said, I'm behind that, getting us to where we need to be and being best in class in certain areas and having a good academy and having the proper team, then I'm behind all that. So if Ashworth wasn't, then he had to go. But it's raised a lot of question marks about INEOS's decision making, because they waited 9 months for the guy and it hasn't worked out. So whether that's down to INEOS making the wrong decision or Ashworth just not working out, which happens in all walks of life, in all walks of business, will remain to be seen. But I can't get out of my head a couple of other things that INEOS have done that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has, been the front man for. Whether he made the ultimate decision, we'll never know. But INEOS themselves as an organisation, I'm just using that as the buzzword for our new footballing structure that they've made in recent weeks that have really put a sour taste in all of our mouths, hasn't it? So the decision, for example, to stop paying Sir Alex Ferguson's ambassador contract. Now, did he need one on millions of pounds a year or hundreds of thousands of pounds a year? No, but he's Sir Alex Ferguson. And Eric Cantona came out and said it, that if anyone deserves any special dispensation, it's him. And like, he's still going to games and he looks fine with them. Like, we're not hearing much from him about this whole situation. I don't think we ever will. But that's a bad look. This is all optically. It's a bad look. And raising ticket prices to £66, a lot has been made of that. And he's come out and kind of given the corporate spiel on it and saying it's only 3% of tickets and it's only this, it's only that. Thing is, mate, you are now, however you grew up, you are now a multi-billionaire. And £66, let's look at me, for example, all right? A lot of people will look at me and say, oh, I live in London. I'm everything wrong with Man United. I'm not a proper club. Support your local and all this stuff. How about this, yeah? I came to London for work. I came to London for university as well. And with COVID and the way that the world has gone, I've struggled living in London. But I will do anything to watch my team play. I would then have to pay £100 ticket to get a train to go up to Manchester, which is where I'm based, so I'll take that. But then another £66 to watch them play. I don't have the money, £200, whatever it is, to go from London in a work situation which has changed dramatically for me, which has made me had to chop and change jobs and put a lot of stress on me financially and mentally for that, and then pay an extra £200 to watch Manchester United and, you know, spend hours travelling or whatever. Again, that's on me, but or to watch football that isn't even worth 50% of that. Now, put that in the context of working class people, good, honest people that support Manchester United, that live in that area, that has been suffering in the shadows of Manchester City this entire time, that want nothing more than to go to their club and forget about life for a little bit. You've completely, whatever you talk about, you know, the PSR rules and making money, whatever, surely there were other ways of making money other than taking it out of the pockets of the hands that have fed Manchester United for generations. Whatever way you look at that, that is a terrible look for Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS. And that's the one time where I say I was genuinely disappointed. The second time, I would say I was genuinely disappointed with the way that they were running the football club. The first time, which hasn't been talked about enough whatsoever, is the operation of the women's team. Because we lost Alessia Russo, we're losing Mary Earps, and we saw so much going on behind the scenes at that club where people weren't happy with the manager, they weren't happy with the structure, but you're hearing stories about where they're having to train, where they're having to get changed, the lack of investment that goes into the women's game for their kit and their sponsors and everything. I'm sorry. Women's football, for me, is such, if you're talking business-wise, it's such a massive opportunity to get Manchester United to the forefront of something. Because women's football is lacking investment, is lacking the eyes that it deserves, but it's getting there. So why wouldn't you want Manchester United, as one of the biggest clubs in the world, to be at the forefront of that transformation of women's football? And what we don't understand as men, maybe, or as men's football fans, is that the woman's body is completely different setup genetically to a male body. And what I mean by that is that they're more susceptible to injuries, certain injuries, than men, and the other way around. But because of how long we've had investment in the men's game, we've had mitigations against that. But you see ACLs and cruciate ligament injuries happen for fun in women's football because they're trying to use the same equipment, when it doesn't work like that. I actually had a chat with someone who plays for Derby women's team. They had to use the boys kits. How disgusting is that, realistically? And I don't get how Manchester United can ever call themselves best in class if we're not best in class everywhere. Backroom, first team, under 18s, under 23s, women's team. Right now, the under 18s are showing us all up. They're showing us how it's done, frankly. They're playing brilliantly, which makes me think the future of Man United is bright. Of course it is. Of course it's bright. But the way they're operating now, they're putting all their eggs in the men's basket and where they're getting a lot of spotlight. And frankly, I think they've been let off a bit easy with how they dealt with the women's team, and they need to change that very, very quickly. Because with the amount of redundancies that have happened behind the scenes and even just spending 20 odd million pounds to keep Erik ten Hag, then to sack him, then to bring in Rennie Hack and Ruud van Nistelrooy, then to sack them both, then to bring in Ruben Amorim and all his backroom staff in the space of 1 month, shows that there have been some decisions that have been made that haven't worked out. And I think as fans, we just have to decide which is better. Either you make those decisions and you move quickly and you move on, or you stick with your guns and maybe look silly later down the line. None of us know how that's going to pan out, but all I want to say is that optically, the Ashworth situation and a lot of the situations I've mentioned in this video does not look good on INEOS. It does not reflect well on INEOS or Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But at the same time, I like what Omar Berrada has been saying, and I like what Amorim is doing, and I like that we have a consistent style of play after 4 games. And we'll get into it with the Amorim video, but there's a storm coming with the players on the pitch, but there's a storm coming in the boardroom as well. Would I rather deal with all this stuff at once so that we could figure out where to go next? Yes. I would much rather that than 6 months there's a problem, another 12, and then all of a sudden we've lost years within this project. So we're very early days, and there's no need to really go above and beyond what I've said in this video. It's just I'm disappointed that Ashworth hasn't worked out, but the reasons it hasn't worked out might be for the right reasons. Like, if he's not behind the project, if he's not the guy that we all thought he was, that they thought he was, then maybe it was best to move on. And maybe it's best for him to go off in his career to do something different and to go somewhere different, as well as for us to move on with someone who is more akin to what we need right now. So very annoying to have to make this kind of video so early on in my YouTube journey. I mean, 2,000 subscribers we got, which is amazing. Let's get to 2.5K as quickly as we can so I can get that giveaway going and get some positivity going in the fan base right now. But it's a tough time. I'll be honest. It's not it's not too much to be happy about with the way we're playing or anything like that, which we'll get to in the next video. But if you enjoyed this one, please do drop a like, and I want to hear what you think about this situation in the comments as well, because there's a lot to unpack there, and no one's going to be right in what they say until we figure out what happens in about 1 or 2 years' time. But let me know what you think about the situation with INEOS, what you really think about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what they've done so far. And overall, if you want my genuine assessment in about 30 seconds, I'm still happy that we have a new structure. I wasn't convinced about the Jassim deal because I just thought someone with those amount of resources would have got it done straight away and not waited to the limit he has. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has been opportunistic in getting a good deal in with the Glazers that gives him sporting control and probably gives us more control going forward. So I'm not mad at that whatsoever. He's brought in some really good people. Some have worked out, some haven't. And that is the way business operates. But some of the decisions he's made have been questionable. Some of them morally I disagree with, and maybe that is just an indictment of how badly we've been run all this time, that he has felt the need in order to do that, because I don't think any self-respecting businessman would want to make these decisions. So it's a difficult one, but we are still going in a better direction than where we were under the Glazers, in my opinion. I still think we are. The results haven't shown it, but I see light at the end of the tunnel. I do. It's a long tunnel. And that's what Amorim means when there's a storm coming. But, you know, we're operating with different people in different roles. And I think that's how we should have been. And only time will tell to see whether it's successful or not. So thank you all for watching the video. I've rambled on for like 20 odd minutes. So that's me done. Get in the comments. Let me know what you think. Subscribe if you're new. We're trying to hit 2,500 by the end of the year. So let's see if we can hit that. And let's just go from there. But thank you all so much for watching. And I'll see you at the next video.